as per your request. So I'll just start presenting. Okay, so is the screen, is the PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so slide number 140, we had actually been doing a comparison between the armature controlled and field controlled mode, and thankfully most of it had been covered. Only the last point needed to be explained, in fact just stated, and then we will go over to an application of servo motors, namely the remote position control system. So basically I'll just tell you about the last point over here on this page. That is, the amplifiers used in the armature controlled mode need to be much more, need to supply a greater amount of current, because the armature current is typically larger compared to the field current. So in the armature controlled mode, when the servo motor is being used in the armature controlled mode, since the armature side is being supplied, the amplifier would be requiring to supply more current. On the other hand, if we are going in for a field control DC servo motor, in that case, since the amplifier is connected to the field circuit, it has to supply a lesser amount of current. So a smaller amplifier would suffice. So that is all regarding this. That is the comparison between the armature controlled and the field controlled DC servo motor. Next, I'm going to the next slide, which is slide number 141, which is an application of the DC servo motor that we have studied just now, just before this. So over here you find, first of all, two photographs, or rather one photograph, and the second one was a GIF which was animated, and nothing great actually. What is there is, I'll just admit somebody. Okay, so what is there is, the first one, you can see the dish over here, and the dish can point to any direction depending on, say, an approaching target. So basically that is what it has to do. It can rotate over here. The second one was the same. I mean, the figure is the same. The only difference is that when I mean, it is a GIF, so it used to rotate that way, but I'm not risking the projection of this I mean, of the slides, because maybe it is not going to be possible in my bandwidth. Okay, just a moment. Okay, so we start off with the remote position control system. So over here, you find the I mean, the diagram drawn over here, and let me explain each of these, and we will also go to the notations. I'll just explain all the notations, or rather state all the notations that are used over here, which is going to be done in the next slide. So before going to that, you find that over here, this side, I hope the cursor is visible. This is an error sensor which has a potentiometric bridge arrangement, as we had already studied just prior to this. So here, of course, it is similar to the one which was taken from Professor Sushil Dasgupta's book, The Scheme I Mean. Over there as well, we had over here. Okay, so over here, you can see the potentiometric bridge arrangement, and the dotted lines are indicating the respective shafts, the theta r being indicative of the reference angular position. So over here, I would restate what I stated once earlier, that is, though the elements over here are shown, they are straight apparently, but they are actually indicating angular potentiometers. So over here, this is going to be an angular potentiometer, which can be actually placed at any position. That is, the command position is going to be given over here by the shaft, that is theta r. Similarly, this element also is an angular one, and theta c is the command that is going to come over here. So coming back to the overall arrangement, this is the potentiometric bridge arrangement, and then depending on the difference between theta r and theta c, an error signal is going to be generated over here. So this is an amplifier, as you can see, and then over here we have a DC servo motor. So as far as the DC servo motor is concerned, you can see that first of all, IF is equal to constant. So this is the field side, and it is, it has a constant field current flowing through it. And you can see that the amplifier is connected to the armature side. So what mode is this DC servo motor being used in? It is the armature controlled mode, because field current is constant and the signal from the amplifier, that is the exciting signal, is exciting the armature side. So here you can see VA being the armature voltage that is being applied to the armature, and you have the current flowing, that is IA, RALA. We'll come to more of the notations in the next slide. But now you find that the armature is now coupled via a gearing arrangement over here to the load. So this is the load. The JL and the FL consist of the load, and now the load is connected via the shaft to the gear. So of course, if the gear were not present, the motor shaft would have been directly connected to the load. Mechanically, it would have directly been connected to the load shaft. But over here, that is the same thing is being done via a gear train over here. So now the load shaft is again mechanically coupled, you can see, to the input side via the potentiometric error detector. So this dotted line that you see from the load shaft and coming to the input side, to the input of the amplifier, or rather to the error detector itself, is indicating a mechanical coupling. The coupling is done such that what is generated at the output of the potentiometric error detector is the difference in between theta r and theta c, a signal which is proportional to the difference in between theta r and theta c. So now coming to the notations, a complete listing of the notations. Yes. So on this slide, what you find is, as I have already mentioned, theta r is the angular displacement of the reference input shaft. The angular displacement may be expressed either in degrees or in radians, but all the units have to be compatible to it. So over here, we are taking the input in radians. Then theta c is the angular displacement of the output shaft in radians. So over here, this is theta c. Okay, one thing I have to mention over here is that we find two notations, that is theta L being the angular displacement of the load, and theta C, which is the angular displacement of the shaft which is connected to the potentiometric error detector. So in the special case, as is shown over here, theta C and theta L may be equal. In general, we could have had again another gearing arrangement via which the feedback would be given. So then in that case, theta c would have been some factor multiplied by theta L. But just for simplicity, what has been done is that in this diagram, you see that theta c is equal to theta L. You might be wondering why ma'am has used two notations, because they are one and the same thing. Actually, a provision has been kept, that is, if the gear would have been used, a gear train could have been used over here for the mechanical coupling, in which case theta c and theta l would have been different. Now, coming back to the notations, you find theta L, yes, is the angular displacement of the load shaft. So that I've already stated, this is the load shaft and the angular displacement is denoted as theta L, again in radians. Theta M is the angular displacement of the motor shaft. So over here, this is the motor shaft and its angular displacement is theta M. In a special case, maybe what may happen is that the gear train is not present over here. So theta M could be directly coupled to theta L. In that case, theta M also is going to be equal to theta L, a special case that is. But here, generalization has been done. So gear train is given over there, an appropriate gear ratio has to be considered, and theta M and theta L would be related by using that gear ratio. Now next we have KE being the gain of the potentiometric error detector. Now the potentiometric error detector is this one. You find that the output of the potentiometric error detector is going to the input of the amplifier. So it has to be, the output of the potentiometric error detector has to be a voltage, and the input is coming from the difference of the two shafts. So it is an angular displacement. So the error sensitivity over here denoted by KE has the unit volt per radian, because it has to convert the difference in the radians, that is angular displacements of theta r and theta c, and convert it to an equivalent volt. So KE is the gain of the potentiometric error detector, also known as the sensitivity of the potentiometer, and the unit is volts per radian. Of course, that radian comes from the fact that theta r and theta c, the units are in radians, that is why volts per radians. Otherwise, you would have to choose volts per degrees. KE would have to be converted to the equivalent volt per degree if the input and the theta c also were mentioned in degrees. That is, of course, evident, but I'm mentioning these because you sometimes tend to overlook and mismatch may occur. Next is the amplifier unit over here. So the amplifier gain is denoted as K suffix capital A, and the unit is volts per volt. It is, of course, unitless. You can see we are getting an output in volts. The input is also volts. So here it is going to be a pure gain because it's an amplifier, and the notation is KA. Next, we have VA denoting the applied armature voltage in volts. So that is coming over here. And then, of course, RA and LA. You would find that there is a mismatch in between the two notations. I have erroneously used small r suffix A over here in the figure, whereas capital R suffix A is, the notation that has been described over here. They are supposed to mean one and the same thing. Just treat it as a typographical error. So RA is the armature winding resistance in ohms, and LA is the armature winding inductance. So LA is shown over here and is usually negligible. That we discussed when we were doing the armature control DC servo motor, right? That the armature winding inductance is often negligible. The armature current is denoted by IA, you can see, and the unit is amperes as expected. And then we have over here the motor coming in. So as far as the motor is concerned now, we have EB, the back EMF in volts. We have EB as the back EMF in volts. It's actually not shown over here. Okay, some people are entering. Let me just admit them. And then we have KB as the back EMF constant. So back EMF constant we had encountered when we were doing the armature control DC servo motor. The unit is going to be volts per radians per second. So that would be volts second per radian. So if you recollect, what was KB doing? It was converting the angular velocity into an equivalent back EMF. So basically the conversion from the, you can see conversion from the angular velocity to the volts is what this kb is going to do. So appropriately, the unit is volt second per radian. Next, we come to the load moment of inertia and the load viscous friction coefficient, respectively, the units of which are kg meter square and Newton meter second per radian, as expected. So GL and FL are, defined for the load side. Similarly, as far as the motor is concerned, the motor moment of inertia and the motor viscous friction coefficient also have the notations J suffix small m and F suffix small m, respectively, the units being similar to that of the load moment of inertia and load viscous friction coefficient. So if the your FM is negligible, often what happens is that load friction is made as small as possible. In that case, it is going to be negligible. That's written over here. And then K suffix capital M denotes the motor torque constant. The units you can see is Newton meter per volt. That is, it's going to convert a voltage into the torque. So basically, the unit is Newton meter per volt. So having described all those notations over here, we go to the derivation of the overall model of this remote position control system. But before going to that, over here you can just see again another scheme where a remote position control system is going to be used in the ship, where you find that here the control is being done from this cabin over here. So this fellow is sitting over there, and he is trying to control the direction of antennas which are placed on what we call the shipboard. So the antennas will be placed on the shipboard. I think it's hidden over here. But anyway, the direction of these can actually change, and it is being changed by a person who is sitting over there. The control is being done manually. So what we have seen as theta suffix small r is going to be the angular displacement that is given as a reference by this person manually over here, who is placed over there. And we would be expecting the load shafts to be following the theta r, that is the command signal which is being given from inside, has to be replicated on the outside, on the radars or on the dishes which are placed on the outside, that is on the board of the ship. So coming back to the derivation of the model of this scheme, that is the remote position control system. So here, first of all, we find, or rather we define, the gear ratio we have stated is small n is to 1, and it has been mentioned over here as n1 is to n2. So basically, n1 by n2 is small n. You can see that. That is the gear ratio. So now we are going to take each of these components over here. How many components have we seen? First of all, the error detector, potentiometric error detector, and then we have seen the amplifier unit, and then we have seen the DC servo motor in the armature controlled mode, and then the gear train and the load which is coupled to the input, that is the error detector. The shaft is coupled mechanically to the input side via the potentiometric error detector. So we are going to actually model each of these components separately. The ones for which we know the models already, we'll have it's going to be easier for us, and we are just going to put in those models in the respective places, whereas the others we will see what happens. So here now, the potentiometric error detector output voltage is denoted as epsilon. So epsilon is going to be equal to the error sensitivity. You would recollect the units were in volts per radian. So KE unit was volts per radian. So that is multiplied by the difference in theta r minus theta c. So the input to the error detector is theta r, and theta c, the difference is taken and multiplied by the error sensitivity factor, which is K suffix E, to give us the output of the potentiometer. So this unit is taken care of. The model is simply epsilon s is equal to ke into theta rs minus theta cs. Next, we have the amplifier unit. So the amplifier input is given by epsilon and the output is given by VA. So we have as the model VAS is equal to KA, which is the amplifier gain, which we had defined already, the notation we had already stated, and we had also noted that it is unitless. Actually, it's converting from a volt to a volt. So Ka multiplied by epsilon s, which is the voltage which is being input to the amplifier. So this is the model of the amplifier, which is VAS is equal to K into epsilon s. So this portion is now taken care of. Next, what we find is that the DC potentiometer in the armature controlled mode is being used over here. But what we find is that there is a slight difference with the, model that we had actually derived. The difference being that over there we did not have any coupling with the load. Over there only the motor was shown, the model for which was derived. Here we have, since we have an application over here, what has been done is that the motor shaft is here coupled to the load shaft, and because of that what will happen is that the moment of inertia and the viscous friction coefficient, the equivalent has to be taken. So if we had in the case of the armature control DC servo motor, we had respectively the motor moment of inertia and the motor viscous friction coefficient. But over here, when we consider wherever we have the viscous friction coefficient and the moment of inertia coming in, we would have to deal with the equivalent moment of inertia and equivalent viscous friction coefficient converted to either of those two sides, meaning either the motor side or the load side as per your convenience. So here we are what we are doing is we are converting the overall moment of inertia to the motor side, and also the viscous friction coefficient, the equivalent viscous friction coefficient is taken on the motor side. So for that, we have first written the motor moment of the equivalent moment of inertia in terms of the motor moment of inertia and the load moment of inertia, which is given by capital J. So capital J is the equivalent moment of inertia when reflected to the motor side, and is given as Jm plus n squared JL as per what our notations are. So that can also be written as Jm plus n1 by n2 whole square JL, because if you recollect, I had stated n by 1 is equal to n1 by n2. It's the same thing. We have used two notations just to simplify matters, in the sense in some cases you are going to find that the gear train ratio is given as n, small n. So that value has to be just put in over there, implying that it is the ratio of n1 to n2. So that this is what it would be coming to, that is J is equal to Jm plus n1 by n2 square JL. Similarly, F, that is the equivalent viscous friction coefficient, is equal to Fm plus n square Fl. So now, if that were the case, we would be now writing the model for this portion, that is the DC armature control DC servo motor, when there is a coupling with the load shaft. So in that case, now if you would recollect what we had done in the previous class, the model would consist of a ratio of the output, which is theta m, and the input, which is VA, as far as your servo motor is concerned. So here theta ms by VAS is given by, you would recollect this model we had derived in the last class. The only difference being that over here the motor moment of inertia is replaced by the equivalent moment of inertia, and the motor viscous friction coefficient is replaced by the overall equivalent viscous friction coefficient. So the model of the servo motor when coupled to the load is given, directly written over here, which is given as Ki by S into Js plus F whole into Ra plus Sla plus kb ki s. So the same thing is written in the time constant form, where tau m represents the j by f ratio, and tau a represents the ratio of L A to RA. Now, of course, if LA is negligible, then what we will have is that this portion is going to be equal to 0. So as a result of that, there will be simplification, and we will be just left with, in the denominator, we will be left with RAFS 1 plus S tau m plus KB KI S. So if tau A is, or rather as tau A is negligible due to the LA being negligible, we would have a simplified model for this, that is the second order model, in which there is this term is missing. So that is what has been written over here. Theta ms by VAS is given by Ki by, you find that the term containing tau A is missing. Missing means that because it is negligible, it has been neglected. So we have Ki by RAF whole into 1 plus S tau m plus KB Ki, and the whole thing multiplied by S. And that we can rewrite, and I mean, collecting first order and second order terms in the denominator, we can rewrite it as you can see. So Ki by the second order term will be S square into RA into J, because I mean you have tau m, which is J by F. So F into, you have RA into F into J by F over here, which has been written. And then on this side, you have plus S into RAF plus KPKI, which is the first order term. So now, I mean, writing that in, trying to simplify matters a bit, what we have done over here is that we have divided the numerator and the denominator by a specific term, which is this one. So you can see that the numerator and denominator have been divided by RAF plus KBKI. This is done just to write the servomotor transfer function in a bit simplified fashion, simply that. So by doing that, you see that the numerator is now Ki by RAF plus KBKI, and the denominator you can see, so S square multiplied by this term plus S into 1, because we have divided by the coefficient of S over here. All the terms have been divided by that. So what have we achieved by doing this? That you see in the numerator, all these, that is Ki, RAF, KB, all these are constants. So what we have in the numerator is some constant. So that is replaced by a notation which is K suffix small m, which is called the motor gain constant, and is equal to Ki by RAF plus KB Ki, whatever was there. The whole thing is a constant which is called the motor gain constant and given a notation K suffix small m. And in the denominator, you have S square into, again over here, whatever is within the brackets, the coefficient, you find all these are again constants. So this one is a, constant, and is denoted as tau m prime, where tau m is called the motor time constant for obvious reasons. You would find that, this is in the time constant form, it has come in the time constant form. So plus S into 1. So basically the denominator has boiled down to S square into tau m dashed plus S into 1. So S is taken common, and we are left with a very simple sort of model for the armature control DC servo motor, which has been coupled to the load side. Of course, the values of all these constants, namely the Km and tau m dash, have to be calculated based on whatever values are given for those components, namely say RA and I and KB and J and all those things, whatever is there inside these terms. But ultimately, we have arrived at a second order transfer function in which we have a pure gain in the numerator, and the denominator is in the form of s into time dashed s plus 1. So this in effect is the model of this portion of the diagram, that is the armature control DC servo motor, which has been coupled with the load. Here you find that the output is theta m, meaning that, okay, the theta m is the output and VA is the input that is being shown over here. Now, here, okay. Here you find that first of all, at the bottom, a block diagram has been drawn. I'll just come to the block diagram first and then go back to the derivation part. You find that over here the several components that we had seen on the previous diagram have been put as block representations with the models respectively coming inside the blocks. So here the potentiometric error detector would actually start from here and go to there, meaning that the difference of theta r and theta c are the inputs to the, or rather theta r and theta c are the inputs to the potentiometric error detector, the output being epsilon. So the output of the potentiometric error detector is being taken from there. If I were to draw single block for the error detector, it would come from there to here. So this would be the block, the two inputs being theta r and theta c. Within the potentiometric error detector, the difference in between the two, that is theta r and theta c, is being taken and being multiplied with the sensitivity of the error detector, that is Ke, and we ultimately get the output of the potentiometric error detector as epsilon L S, which is in volts. So that explains this portion, that is the potentiometric error detector portion. Next came, if you recollect, the amplifier unit. So amplifier gain was Ka, the output was Va, and the input was epsilon S, which is also the output of the error detector. And then next came the servo motor blocks, servo motor, that is in the armature controlled mode. So the servo motor model has now been has now replaced the block that you saw over there, that is representing the servo motor, and we have already derived and seen that it can be replaced by this transfer function, that is Km by S into tau m dashed S plus 1. So this is the representation of the overall servometer when used in the armature control mode, as shown in the previous diagram, and which has already been coupled to the load side. So the output of the servo motor was theta m. So now you would recollect that in the diagram that had been shown, I'll just bring back that diagram. You have theta m over here and theta L being the angular position of the load. So now theta L, and the relation between theta L and theta m is, that theta L would have to be, you have to make the appropriate conversion taking into consideration the gear ratio. Theta m and theta L are not equal. Rather, theta L is equal to n1 by n2 theta m. So that has been reflected by putting in this pure gain over here, which is the ratio of n1 and n2. So by putting in that over here, we make the conversion complete. That is, we are now going to get theta L, because ultimately theta L has been fed back via the mechanical coupling that I told you of, and that comes as theta C to the input of the potentiometer. So that theta L is equal to n1 by n2 into theta m, that is taken care of. And then the theta L, as I told you, theta L over here is equal to theta C, so that comes directly over here. I'll again restate what I had stated earlier. If we had a gear ratio, that is, the coupling was done by a gear train, that gear ratio would have come over here in the feedback path, but that is not there, so that is equal to 1. So theta L is equal to theta C, which is coming as a negative feedback. The coupling will be such that it's a mechanical coupling. It is going to be such that a difference is going to be taken in the potentiometer. So now coming back to the derivation, the motor transfer function including the load now. So the motor transfer function was theta m by Va. The motor transfer function including the load would mean theta L, that is this one, to the Va. So theta Ls by Vas is equal to, now theta ms by Vas we already had, into the ratio that comes over here, which is N1 by N2, the ratio of theta L and theta m. So overall, theta L, that is this point in the diagram, theta L to Va transfer function will now be written as Km by S into tau m dash s plus 1 whole into N1 by N2. So this represents theta L by Va. Now, if you are, if you want to simplify matters a bit, meaning that if you want to see whatever comes in the forward path and find the equivalent forward path transfer function, or what we also call the open loop transfer function, and denote it as G. So Gs is going to be equal to theta Ls by Es. So you can see theta Ls is this one and Es is this. So over here in this diagram, what has been done is that the sensitivity of the error detector is shown as a separate block, and Es is what we are interested in for the timing. If we would have taken in terms of epsilon s, then we would have to put theta L by epsilon s and then multiply it with Ke to get the error signal. So anyway, over here what has been done is that the error signal is denoted as Es, which is this one, and the entire forward path transfer function, that is theta Ls by Es, has been written. So that is, as you can see, the blocks have been cascaded over here, or rather they are in cascade, and naturally the overall transfer function is going to be Ke into Ka into this block into this block. So basically Gs is equal to Ke Ka Km by S into tau m prime S plus 1, and that multiplied by N1 by N2, right? So this in effect is the overall forward path transfer function from this point to that point. So if we were to simplify matters a bit and say that, okay, this is my Gs and I have a unity feedback, and then this is my reference input, and if we want to see what happens now in the steady state, etc., we can do the analysis from this point onwards, because we already have got our model in terms of the block diagram, and also the transfer functions, respective transfer functions have been put in the block diagram properly. So for the time being now, let us, if we want to find out what the steady state error to a step input given by theta r is going to be, let us see what happens. So this is capital theta notation. Capital theta is the amplitude of the input which is being applied. So we are stating that we are applying a step input of amplitude capital theta. So that the step input, if we take the Laplace transformed step input, that is going to be capital theta by S. I repeat, capital theta being the amplitude. If it were a unit magnitude step input, then this theta, capital theta, would have been equal to 1. So now the over here, basically this notation is a bit, I would have preferred to change it, but unfortunately I have forgotten. What we are trying to derive over here is the steady state error. It should not have been denoted as theta SS. A better symbol would have been, say, ESS or something, but it is denoting the steady state error. So theta SS, as I have denoted it, let us stick to that. The steady state error will be given by limit of SES as S tends to 0. So if we want to do that now, we have to find out what happens when we have already stated that the input is a step input. So S into capital theta by S, and divided by, you have over here the forward path transfer function was given by this GS, that is the forward path transfer function. Whatever is written over here is inside that GS. So we would be having 1 by 1 plus GS as the error transfer function, and consequently the error is going to be RS into 1 by 1 plus GS, which is what we have got over here. So if we were to take SES as in the limit as S tends to 0, that would be limit of S tending to 0, S into the input signal, that is theta by S, by 1 plus GS, which was already derived. So now if you look at that, yes, so because of that small s over here in the denominator, you would have that being equal to 0, isn't it? So if you, I mean, just make a simplification, that's going to come in the numerator, and the steady state error will boil down to 0. So are you able to understand what has been done over here?
Ma'am, what is capital theta, please?
Anybody who has not understood the steady state? Yes. So the steady state error is equal to 0. So we find that in this particular application that we have studied, the steady state error is equal to, yes.
Ma'am, what is capital theta?
Capital theta is the amplitude of the input step that is being applied. Amplitude of the input step which is being applied. Okay, so if say I would have applied a unit step input, the value of capital theta would have been 1, whatever magnitude, say for example, if you have 5 units or 10 units, it's a simple, I mean, gain indicating the magnitude of the input signal which is being applied. Okay.
Okay.
So now, I mean, what we have arrived at is that for this particular setup, that is the remote position control system, the steady state error is equal to 0. So what does that physically imply? It implies that if I were giving a command signal of theta r being something, whatever it is, the output, that is theta L, is going to be closely following the input, meaning that the steady state value of the output is going to be exactly equal to the input in the steady state, of course, right? So that means that, I mean, the load shaft is the output of this system. You can see the load shaft position theta L, and that is going to closely follow the input that is applied, which is theta r, the reference or the command signal, right? So that, of course, closely follows means that, of course, transients would be there, but in the steady state, theta L is going to be exactly equal to theta r. So that means that now, I mean, if I were, putting this, applying this, say, for example, in the case of the antenna that we had just seen a photograph of in the first slide that I showed you today, first or second slide that I showed you today, you would see that if somebody, say, for example, wants to put in a particular command signal on this side, he or she would actually see that the load shaft is exactly following that signal. So now what is the, objective of actually putting in a value and then exactly getting it at the output side? Basically, what is being done is that this theta r that is being provided to as the input to this remote position control system is being given, say for example, visualize the case where we have the antenna being placed at the top of a hill, and say for example at the base of the hill a person with in the control room is sitting there, and then depending on an approaching aircraft, enemy aircraft or satellite or whatever, he or she is trying to actually position the direction of the antenna to follow the input, follow the position of the target, whatever it was, and accordingly he is actually giving a command signal. So now, say for example, if he gives a 5 degrees of command signal as theta r, I'm mentioning in degrees, of course the conversion to the radians has to be done, but just colloquially, because when I'm speaking it's better, easier for me to say that way, that's why I'm saying it in degrees. Of course conversion has to be done into radians if you were to take the units which are to be followed for this particular scheme. So if, say for example, let me say if I want a 0.5 radians of angular displacement at my load side, what the operator will be doing is that the command signal is going to be given according to that. So that value of the input angular displacement is being given over here, and appropriately now the direction of the antenna which is placed at the top of the hill is going to be changing according to whatever signal has been given by the person in the control room. So now, say for example, that person sees that my target that was approaching, the position has changed. Now I need to change my antenna position. So what will be done is that simply theta r is going to be changed from the control room, and I would be expecting that the load shaft, which is the shaft of the antenna which is placed on the top of the hill, will be appropriately or exactly following the command signal that I'm applying from the base of the mountain, or the where the control room is. So that is how a remote position control system acts, right? So that if, say for example, by due to any reason, somehow there is a deviation of the load shaft or the antenna shaft that I have given the example of, the antenna shaft is now not equal to the theta r, but has deviated from that position due to any factor. So what will be done by this overall arrangement is that, because ultimately in the steady state, that is, the error is going to be equal to 0, again corrective action is going to be automatically taken by this setup, such that ultimately in the steady state theta l is able to follow whatever command has been given. Any change in command over here is going to be closely followed by the output, that is, this theta l is going to closely follow whatever changes are applied at the command side as well, right? So this is as far as this block diagram is concerned. So right now, any questions till so far before we proceed to the disturbance part?
Ma'am, why we are converting the load side frictional force, or
we have to convert to one side, whichever side it is, whichever side is convenient to you, you can convert. Okay, so instead of n1 by n2, it may be n2 by n1 if you're converting to the other side. Does not matter, but you have to convert to a single side in order to get the equivalent, right?
okay, ma'am.
So keep that in mind when you're doing the conversion, from which side you are converting to the other side. So that has to be taken care of. Okay, so now we will consider the case where there is a disturbance torque coming in. So for that, I'll just show you the block diagram over here first. So what we are speaking of is that we have stated that the load shaft is going to be positioned along a particular direction, and that is going to exactly follow the command position. But what if there is, say for example, a strong gust of wind which is blowing, or some other factor which is applying a disturbance torque or a load torque on the shaft of the motor, which is actually, dictating how the antenna is positioned. So in that case, now we have to again see what happens when there is a load or disturbance torque. So for that, I will again start from the block diagram. So in the block diagram, you see epsilon s is equal to ke into es. That was the which is equal to theta r minus theta c. So that has been also. The input to the servo motor was VA, and V equal to, now if I write it in terms of the difference between theta r and theta c, VA into KE into theta. This has been taken care of. You go back to the I just go back to, okay. So this slide showing this block diagram on top is the one that we were dealing with, the same diagram that we had early one that I was just showing you. So this was the block diagram we had. In this block diagram, just know you see, okay, ES is there, epsilon input to the amplifier is there, and then the servo motor is VAS, which is also there. The output of the servo motor is in terms of the motor angular position, and also you can see theta L with appropriate conversion. Theta M can be converted to theta L as well. Fine. Now, if I were to consider the effect of a disturbance torque, we have not got, I mean, explicitly in this block diagram, you cannot see torque anywhere. Of course, torque is being produced, but as far as mathematics is concerned, and I mean the block representation is concerned, in this particular block diagram, the one on top, torque is not explicitly shown. So what is done is that in order to take care of that, as far as the block diagram is concerned, right? Of course, the setup is going to be there, torque is still there somewhere. So I mean in the shafts, that is being produced in the shafts. So now, as far as the block diagram is concerned, this block over here, that is the motor block or motor transfer function block, is further, I mean, expanded within this dotted blue line that you see, and is written as K suffix capital M into 1 by J equivalent S square plus F equivalent S. So here now what is being done is that the motor torque is explicitly shown, and there is a conversion factor which has come in over here, which is equal to capital K suffix capital M, which is called the motor torque constant. So Km converts the armature voltage into the motor torque and would be having appropriate units. We'll see what units K capital M has to have to make that conversion. Obviously, you can see that the output would be a torque which is in Newton meters and the input is in volts. So K suffix capital M would be having an appropriate unit. Also, this block over here, that is theta M, is obtained from the torque by multiplication with this. So what we have stated over here is that K small m by S into tau m prime S plus 1 has been broken up into K capital M by J equivalent S square plus F equivalent S. So in order to do that now, what have we done? We have just, I mean, made very trivial mathematical manipulations. So what has been done is that, yes, tau m prime is J equivalent by F equivalent, right? And Km is equal to, K capital M, I mean, is equal to K small m into F equivalent, that is this. So by doing that, what has been done is that, so I mean, what have we done over here in this block that we have? Let me repeat what we have done. We have multiplied the numerator by F equivalent and the denominator by F equivalent. So that, if that is done, K suffix small m into F equivalent is denoted as K capital M, which is going to go to the numerator, right? So this is what you see. And in the denominator now, we have also applied, we have also multiplied F equivalent on the denominator side. So by doing that now, tau m prime was there. So multiplied by F equivalent would be, you would have J equivalent, isn't it? Because tau m prime was F equivalent by, J equivalent by F equivalent. So tau m prime was this. And that multiplied by F equivalent would leave us with only J equivalent, right? So J equivalent is what we get over here, multiplied by S square, which was already there, plus F equivalent has also been multiplied to this term. So F equivalent into S. So effectively, this block is the block which converts from the, shows us the conversion rather, from the Tm to the equivalent angular displacement of the motor shaft, which is theta m. So what has been done over here is that we have conceptually broken up the block consisting of the motor transfer function into appropriately two parts over here, such that we can see the torque explicitly, because we would be actually dealing with the disturbance torque and we need to see I mean, how that is going to affect the system. So here, I mean, what I'm saying is that no physical change is being done to the system. What we are doing over here is we are manipulating our blocks, keeping intact whatever else was there, and trying to actually gain access to the TM over here, because if we want to see how the torque is being affected, we have to see what torque was being produced by the motor and then what torque is, I mean, affecting it, and so on. So just to do that, this has been done over here. So if you have any confusion regarding the units, it's given over there. You will be able to see, because K suffix small m was, I mean, already stated earlier to be Ki by RAF plus KB Ki. So the units have been shown over there, and you would see, and this slide is already with you, you would be seeing that it boils down to radians per volt second, K suffix small m, that is. On the other hand, K capital M is in Newton meter per volt, because it is equal to K suffix small m into F. So the units have been multiplied and all that. I've just put the slide over here while I have not done it for all the notations that I've used, because the K capital M and the K small m are sort of confusing. People tend to confuse between the two notations as such. And you can see from this slide at least that K suffix small m has separate units and K capital M has the units that as shown over here. So though the notations are different, converting to different quantities as units have to be used, and you have to be careful. Now coming back to the study effect of load or disturbance torque. So now if I mean look at the block diagram which was modified, the servo motor block was broken up into, had Km explicitly converting from VA to T. This block, that is 1 by J square plus F equivalent, is converting from the Tm to the theta m. So the case where we have an adverse torque affecting the system, we would be having is that be coming in as the minus sign you can see over there. It would be coming in, and we would have to consider the effect of the disturbance torque separately. So now, I mean, going back to the derivation, the developed torque, that is Tm over here, if you were to find out Tm, that is going to be equal to Km into Ka, Ke into whatever we had earlier, theta r minus theta is given by this, that is Tm, right? And now, I mean, we can, and these are all constant. So the product of Km, Ka, Ke, K capital M, of course, the product is replaced by capital K because it's a constant, and then multiplying the units, etc. The unit of K happens to be Newton meter per radian, right? So that actually gives us a relation between the depth, which is Tm, and the input angular displacement, that is theta r and theta c. So Tm is equal to K into theta r minus theta c, where the unit of capital K is Newton meter per radian, as you can see on this slide. So now, just to simplify matters a bit here, I mean, the gear ratio will be assumed to be equal to 1, meaning that we are assuming that N1 is N2. If it were not equal, just appropriate conversion would have to be made. Already stated that theta L or theta C, as we have denoted it by, is going to be equal to N1 by N2 into theta. But for simplicity now, let us assume that this is equal to 1, so that for the time being, we already had rather theta C is equal to theta L, because theta C is the angle over here to the, I mean, at the input of the potentiometric error detector, and I mean theta L was the load angular displacement. So since both are equal, here we have used the notation theta C itself. So theta L is equal to theta C, and now, I mean, by using the simplifying assumption that N1 by N2 ratio is equal to 1, theta M also happens to be equal to theta L. Do not worry if it is not equal to, I mean, the gear ratio is non-unity. In that case, a simple, I mean, multiplication is what you have to do, nothing else, right? So for the time being, we are assuming that simplifying assumption, which makes theta m is equal to theta L is equal to theta C. So now when the load or disturbance torque is acting on the motor, the Tm, that is the developed torque, will have to overcome, number one, the disturbance torque, number two, the amount of torque which is required to position the load. So the sum of the opposing torques have to be, catered to by the developed torque, which is Tm. So Tm is equal to the sum of the opposing torques, which brings us to Tm we had seen on the previous slide was equal to K into theta r minus theta C. So this is Tm and is equal to the sum of the opposing torques. So of the opposing torques, what do we have over here now? The sum is what we are going to take. So basically, TL is one of those components, and plus the torque, that is the input to this block. Now what is the input to this block going to be? Whatever it is, say some torque T, will be multiplied by this to get theta m. So in effect, we can say that T is equal to theta m into the denominator that is coming over there. So basically, were you able to understand that? What I'm saying is that theta m will be equal to that torque multiplied by whatever transfer function is over here. So if we write it in the opposite way, that is the torque is equal to theta m into the denominator terms over here, right? So that is what has been done. So J equivalent is square theta cs plus F equivalent is theta cs. Actually, this portion denotes the torque, that is the output of this summer, you can say, is this one, that is denoted by this whole thing over here, first two terms on the right hand side, and then plus the TL. So do not get confused about the sign of the TL. It's perfectly okay, because over here you find that this torque is going to be equal to Tm minus TL, which is what we are going to get if we take the TL to the left hand side. So Tm minus TL will be giving us what is the output of this summer, right? So this is perfectly matching with what we have over here in the block diagram. Now coming to simplifying this and trying to find out what is going to happen if the what is going to happen to the transfer function rather. So we take the TL to the left hand side, and we are left, and we take the theta cs to the right hand side, and then take terms which are common. So on the left hand side, we now have K into theta rs minus TLs, and that is equal to the first two terms over here plus K into theta cs, which has come from the left hand side. So we can take out theta cs from this side, and we will be left with the coefficient, coefficient of theta cs is equal to J equivalent is square plus F equivalent is plus K. So now if I were to find out, theta cs will be equal to, I can bring the this term over here and divide the left hand side by that, and doing that we will be coming up with theta cs is equivalent to, now is equal to rather, K into theta rs divided by J equivalent is square plus F equivalent is plus S, and minus TL is by again the same denominator, that is J equivalent is square plus F equivalent is plus K. So this is in effect the overall expression for the output in terms of, number one, the reference signal, number two, the other signal which is being input to this system, which is the load or the disturbance torque. Now when I say input, I mean sort of speaking in as a control engineer, in the sense that control engineers would say that yes, the disturbance also is an input. Whether I like it or not is a different issue, but as far as the system is concerned, the load or the disturbance torque is also acting as an input to the system. Now there are two inputs, one being the reference input theta r and the other being the disturbance torque, that is TL, and the output is theta cs. So now if a step command of magnitude, again capital theta, is applied and the load magnitude is capital T suffix capital L, in that case now and if we assume that both of these are steps, so theta rs is equal to capital theta by s. This is something I mean we had done without when we were doing the analysis without the load torque as well. And also, since the load torque is present over here, theta, you can see the left hand side is italicized, whereas the right hand side is not. This one, that is capital T suffix capital L, denotes a constant value, not the TLS that we had on the left hand side. Don't get confused. Notation is a bit confusing, but anyway, you can understand that. So the TL that we have on the right hand side, this one in the numerator of this, is a constant. I mean, depending on the magnitude of the disturbance signal. And because we have assumed that a step disturbance is what we have, so TLS is equal to capital T suffix L by S. So now applying that to our overall transfer, rather the expression for theta CS. Theta CS is equal to, you find that here capital theta by S has replaced theta R. So this is what we have. And TL by S has replaced the TLS that we had. So this is what we have when we have applied a step disturbance as well as a step command. When I say that, I mean that we have applied a step command, but there is a step disturbance. I mean, I cannot apply a disturbance, mind you, but I mean, in colloquial sense, I'm just saying that if a step disturbance is applied, meaning that if a step disturbance is what is acting on the system. So in that case now, and this is what we have as theta CS. So now again, I mean, if I were to see, say what happens to theta C in the steady state. So in order to do that, we have applied again final value theorem, and we have limit, we are taking the limit of S theta CS as S tends to 0. So when we do that, you find that S into whatever was there. And if that is evaluated, you would find that we would land up with theta CSS in the steady state is equal to capital theta minus TL by K, right? So you find that over here, I mean, the S's are going to cancel out. In the numerator, you have the K into capital theta. The denominator, you are left with only the K. So theta, capital theta is what you get from the first term. In the second term, you have again S is cancel out, and then you have in the numerator TL. In the denominator, you have the K, because these are all equal to 0. So we are left with the steady state value of the load shaft, which is equal to, in this case, capital theta minus TL by K. So now if we, I mean, as far as the mathematical derivation is concerned, that is the value of the command shaft output, not command shaft, the commanded shaft, that is the load shaft output, that is the value is going to be equal to capital theta minus TL by K. But if we look at that closely, first of all, there are certain things you see are written over here within those clouds. First of all, the case where TL is equal to 0, that is, there is no disturbance torque. So that would bring us to, if TL is equal to 0, what would happen to theta C in the steady state? It is going to be equal to capital theta. So it brings us to the case that we derived first, that is first meaning when we did not consider the effect of the disturbance, it brings us back to that case, which is what we would have expected anyway. So if TL is equal to 0, the load shaft would be, the value would be exactly equal to the magnitude of the command signal magnitude, which is capital theta. On the other hand, if TL exists now, so of course, if any TL exists, what would happen? Theta C in the steady state is no longer going to be equal to capital theta, which was the command signal, but it is going to be that signal minus a particular amount, right? So now looking, I mean, closely at that amount, we find that yes, in the numerator, we have TL, which means that the error, of course, this is the error term you can, I mean, see in the steady state, that is, this is the steady state error, amount of steady state error that you would be having. So the amount of the steady state error would be directly dependent on, number one, TL, which is the disturbance torque magnitude that is acting. Number two, the value of K. So you can see that over here, the greater the amount of K, the greater the value of K, what will happen to this term? It is going to become lesser. So the amount of error can be reduced if I am somehow able to increase the value of the gain k. You would recollect that k has come from several terms, ka, ke, km, etc. So I mean, when I'm doing the design, actually I have k at least to a certain extent in my hands, meaning that if you recollect the place, yes, k is equal to km, ka into ke. So I mean, if I make my amplifier gain, say for example, if I make k large, what I will be achieving is that effectively that denominator in TL by k will be increased, and as a result of that my term TL by k will become smaller, as a result of which the steady state error will be decreasing. Similarly with, I mean, the potentiometer sensitivity as well. So because this particular system that we are studying is expected to give us as small a steady state error as possible, because it is a tracking system, it has to follow the input as closely as possible. One of the objectives of designing such a system would be to make the value of the gain k over here as large as possible. So having said that, of course, we have to keep in mind that making k larger would also affect the transient performance. So I mean, those issues are, we have to keep in mind when we are doing a practical design, but those are not, I mean, taken into consideration over here. From the point of view of steady state error only, the k has to be large, or rather the larger the value of k, I mean, the smaller the steady state error we have. And because this is a tracking system, one of the objectives would be to make the k as large as possible. Of course, as large as possible also takes into account that we cannot make it larger than a particular, I mean, limit, because it's going to have stability issues and transient performance will drastically decrease. That we do not want, we have to keep that in mind. But within the limitations, we would want to make k large, right? So that is all as far as this lecture is concerned, and this remote position control system is concerned, because I think some people have an issue in continuing the class. I wanted 2 periods, but anyway, I'd agreed to taking the class up to 6. I've already overshot. So I end over there. If you have any questions, you can ask, or I'll take the attendance and leave you. Any questions? Okay, then I'll stop sharing and take the attendance. Okay. If you have questions, you can ask in the next class as well. No problem. I'll just stop sharing.